Thank you for joining me again at the Trail of the Green Man. We're going to take a look at the tragedy, of Cymbeline, and that's from Shakespeare's First Folio. And this is an interesting page because it's already a finding on this page that was by a Peter Amundsen, and it's where I'm going to start off on this page. Actually, it's such a solid find, and it helps explain a few things as well, and I really do recommend that you go out and take a look at his book if you get the chance. It was quite an informative read. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is at the top. I'll just zoom in for us here. I've just left it double page so you can take a look. Also, it's worth noting as well that, as you can see, because the way the book is sitting at the edge of the pages, the page kind of turns in on itself. So what you get is a kind of disorientated kind of display at that point. So any alignments, I'll make it clear if we need to use another document. I just like using this version of the folio because of the resolution. But if there's any alignments that could be a problem because of this page turning, we'll take a look at it if and when it arises. But as you can see, we've got page 378 and then 389. This should be 379, and it's actually a page error. And I'll just zoom in for us here. Take a little look. So basically it's 389 now. So the page error, if we add these numbers together, 3, 8 and 9, it adds up to 20. And 20 being R at 17 and C for 3, adding together for RC and 20. But what it says here is basically underneath it is the word corrupted. And indeed it is corrupted, it should be 379. But also it's saying who knows if one, and that is quite a fact because there isn't one page 389, there's another page 389, 10 pages further forward. But that's something we can discuss perhaps in another video. But it's just a kind of verification that this page is an error, and they're basically like verifying or clarifying that error for us with giving us this word corrupted under the page 389. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight what it was put forward by Peter Amundsen as a 3-4-5 triangle. And what we've got here, I'll just highlight it up for us. Is the word rosy. Now, what he highlights here is the capital C. I'll zoom in again. It's just easier to see. The C, R, O, and then S running backwards for rosy cross. And this is in a 3-4-5 triangle, being 53 degrees, 37 degrees, and 90 degrees. Which is something that we see repeated. So this was quite a solid foundation. And he's also pointed out that the word apud here, especially in publications, this is something that you might see in the Latin for, like, this was done by, or produced by, and finding this apud rosy cross, meaning by rosy cross, is, again, it's just something that we're going to verify the more we go into this page. Now, the next thing I want to point out here is, now depending on the order in which the videos are seen, this may become obvious or not depending on the order, but seeing this capital V and capital V, if we were to bring those together to form one letter, a W, what we get is this W-O-N-T for want. Now, want, I don't mean as in I want a new car. That's not what I'm meaning. This expression is if someone is want to do something, they often or regularly do it. It's like being accustomed to something, somebody's want. And this is going to be become more clear what exactly this means. Like the fact that it's accustomed to something, it's something that's done before many times. And this is going to be apparent, but just not right at this minute. It's hard to tell the story in a linear fashion. and trying to lay it out in that way, because it doesn't actually come out that way in the page when you're first working on it. So trying to lay things out in a manner in which it's explainable, unless you're actually working on the page yourself, that sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. But what we've got is a nice example of a 3, 4, 5 triangle here. And want, meaning like something that they do something regular or often. So what I'm going to do next, we will come back to this area, but what I'm going to do is take a closer look at what is adjacent to it. And this, how can I put it, hopping around, it gets explained, believe me, I will explain it. And what we've got is a telestic here, the last letter of a word, and the last word of the line. And it's RENEGE for renege. Now, renege means to go back on something, and it's not just like a innocently go back on something. To renege on something is a really a strong action, and the strength of that action would reflect on one's honour, whether you carried it out or not. So it comes really, renege is something that would be connected with taking a vow and then reneging on that vow, and that would affect one's honour. So it's interesting that we see this word honour and vow here with renege. Again, depending on how many videos you've seen, sometimes what the constructions are is just something that helps build a bigger construction, or helps guide us to somewhere else in the page. Just like this one here, because at the bottom of renege, what we have is TOP, an acrostic of a simple acrostic, 3 letters. And of course, the smaller the acrostic, the more chance it's being like just random. But it all has to be told together in one story for it all to make sense. So if top and it says above measure, if we take that just like, how can I put it, an instruction, if we come to the top of the page here and it's saying top measure, I'm going to highlight here an instruction at the top. Proceed first her bed chamber. And we're going to leave that right there, because what I'm going to do is explain how we got to the 3, 4, 5 triangle in the first place. Not just because it was previously highlighted by Peter Amundsen, as I've said before, but we're actually guided to it on this page. So what I'm going to do is highlight some information here. And at first, if I just show you, it's going to seem quite a lot, but if you just follow me as I move through the page, it kind of explains itself. We've seen examples like this before, but all it's doing is just giving us some kind of acrostic or telestic, and then an explanation in the play or the description that allows us just to flow down a page or in a direction of the page it is desiring us to go to. Now, what we get is an acrostic of TOWS, which means toes. Now, we know the spelling for toes would be TOES, but phonetically, we get the word toes. Now, this might seem really far-fetched, like a lot of this, but it's just innocent, like words that kind of first gets your attention and then kind of leads you on from there. And it's saying here, ripped it from her arm, but you don't get toes on an arm. But if we just look here, we have H and for hand, and then using the word yet, enriched, we've got 10. Now that kind of makes more sense, because we've got 10 toes and a hand, but if we look here at the telestic, we get FEET for feet, and on our feet we do indeed have 10 toes. So all we see here is one acrostic and one telestic leading us down the page, and it says plucked it off. Now, just like it says here, ripped it off her arm, which didn't make sense, but now plucked it off. Now, if we were to pluck a foot off, 1 foot, we would H-O-P, backwards, hop, meaning basically to hop up and down on 1 foot, because we have just plucked one of the feet off. Now, this might seem so much effort has been put into something so simple just to guide it down the page, but if we were to hop, to the other side and look, what we have is an acrostic of MAD for mad, and you must think like hopping mad, like somebody's hopping mad. But if you were mad and you were hopping, or at least once, one hop, you would stamp. So this hop, mad, stamp. So hop, mad, stamp. It basically, all it's done is allowed us to hop from one side of the page to other. And what we have here is a stamp, and it says here, this want, meaning it's something that they do often. And you've got 1, 3, 4, 5 triangle here, and because it's want and it's often, we have another 3, 4, 5 triangle here, and it says here, father was. Now, if we're talking about the Rosy Cross, there is only one father, and that's Father IC, or Father RC, sorry. And if we look here, we have some Roman numerals, an I, a C, an M. The W is not a Roman numeral, and then V. But if we look close, it says, made me a counterfeit. And I see this capital letter M here, and a capital M in the alignment for the Roman numerals. Now, if this counterfeit M was not to be used because it was fake, because we're dealing with a stamp, remember, something that could be stamped like a Rosy Cross seal. If we take it that the M's counterfeit and not to be used, we have ICV, and if we add those numbers together, we get 106, the age of Father RC. So maybe now this Rosy Cross being here, and this, the father the Rosy Cross was, and then we have his age, is very interesting, the way that actually guides us from one side of the page and then over to the other side of the page. And then, as we have already spoke about, you would come over to the other side of the page and then jump to the top of the page. So indeed, you are hopping around the page quite a lot. But what if we start taking things literally, like it's telling us the Father RC 106, and the father was at 106. Father Rosenkreutz, or Christian Rosenkreutz, died, and it's saying this is basically like a stamp of the Rosy Cross, and we have 3, 4, 5 triangles which we could consider the stamp. But we know, if you've been watching the videos, there's another symbol that's, like, I don't want to say more important, but late, ever so hidden, more so than a 3, 4, 5 triangle. And if we look, if I place a heptagon, a 7-sided tomb, highlighted here in green, we see that these 2, 3, 4, 5 triangles are not randomly placed. They indeed make up the angle required for a heptagon. What I've done is made the heptagon the length of the Rosy Cross triangle, being the more prominent and the bigger triangle. And if we look at this side here, there's nothing, and it says which is nothing. And then here there's nothing, and then nothing, and then at the top, what we do get is father. So that is something that's really provoking. And this is the only other side, and it's posthumous. And I like to think post is after, enter after humus and human. I think it's like Enter After Death, and this is basically the seven-sided tomb of Father RC. And what's interesting is this isn't even the 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 beginning of the page, if for lack of a better explanation. This is just, how can we explain it? The the wordplay that's going on around here. I don't know if it's taken advantage of the sheer size of the page. Everything we've looked at so far has been very small pages. But when we come to Shakespeare's folio, the the page size is rather hefty, and it allows for these larger constructions. But so what I'll do, I'll zoom out again because we can get a larger picture of what we've just seen. You can just see the sheer amount of it. It's quite busy there. So what I'm going to do just for now is I'm going to remove some of this information because we don't need to see it again. There we go. Just to give us a much clearer page, because where we left off was at the top of the page when we followed the instruction, top measure basically. And the next thing we see, there is something here above this, and we might get to it, we might not. We'll see how long this video goes on for. But it's proceed first her bedchamber, and this is where the measure part becomes like important, because when I highlight the next occurrences of the word chamber, we have 1, 2, 3, and what I found is they were equidistant from the centre chamber, being that they measured the same size, and being what we just seen, that seven-sided tomb that I placed, decided to place the next one down like here as well. And what we got is something that went off the page, and I'm not implying that the next page has anything to do with it. I'm just showing that it's went off the page, and it was off the page at this, how can I put it, this kind of position, because that might come important at another video, like a follow-on video basically. So when we just look, it does indeed take in the three examples of chamber, and what was important was we crossed over the word honour, and perhaps that is just a kick-off from when we got the word honour and vows from renege before. It's just interesting that the line crosses right through the capital H for honour. Just zoom in a little bit more. Now at this point there was lots of options in what to do next, and being at the kind of end of the page, it was quite a trial and error process, I suppose, to highlight what was next. But placing another heptagon down another seven-sided tomb, just zoom out so you can get a little look. Placing it down this way, the reason why I felt this was what was expected was it highlighted this explanation in between the two of them, and it was relation likewise. Now to me, that means that they share a relationship together, they're the same thing, and they were joined by the word honour, and that honour had come out previously. And when I looked at the other side, what I seen was the capital S of spare, A, N, C of count. It's not capital. I'll zoom in for us here. As you can hear, it's not a capital C, but it's saying count, as in count this one, count this C. Again, this is interpretation, but after a while, it's just instruction after instruction, basically. And then we have T-O-M, and that would spell out sanctum. Now that is very, very close to the word sanctum, which would be a holy place, or a crypt, or a tomb, possibly. Now, in order to hear what we've got here, it's gave us a chance to actually kind of work on this here. So sanctum is not exactly sanctum. But what we can do, if we can look here, it says son. Now, I think this is helping us understand this here, because we could have son as in the male offspring, or we could have sun, what we see in the sky. One is said with an O and one with a U, but phonetically it's the same. So I think it's given us an example here to help us understand that this should actually be a U. But again, it's just interpretation. Like, I'm trying to make things make sense. But there's more to help us understand why it's trying to say this word sanctum here, because at this side we have I.O., and we all know where I am looking for this tomb of brother I.O. basically. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to highlight the centre of this 7-sided tomb with 2 lines, meaning that I'm taking it from here, the centre, to the high point, and then the high point to the centre of the flat. So this basically highlights the centre of it. And when we do that, what we get is the word from description, obviously describing what we're seeing here. This is the description, and it's telling us it's crypt I.O. and it's the description of what we're seeing, because we have I.O. here, and it's the sanctum, and it's the word description in the centre, and it's telling us it's the crypt of I.O. So I like to think that this is explaining that we have moved the heptagon on the right side, and we are indeed on the trail of what we should be doing correctly, just simply following the simple clues or the simple feedback that the page gives us using this template-like structure. Now, the next thing that comes to my mind would be, where do we place the next one? And like always, there's help. It tells us the word at this corner is spare, so my mind is obviously thinking extra. There's an extra one, and then we have the word another here, so that means placing the next one at the word spare at another. So that means we've basically used various words, relationship likewise, another and spare, to help us place exactly where we should be putting the next heptagon and following this structure to its completion. It was at this next stage that, even though I didn't understand it at the time, I'd actually uncovered another layer of what I didn't know for many years actually. What is interesting, it was the penultimate, it was leading to the end. If you'd like to know what that end was, come along, join us at the Trail of the Green Man, where we will discuss this page, and we probably do some kind of live stream where I will go through the entire solution, or perhaps you might like to come up with your own suggestions for the solution to complete this page. I have not discussed everything on it. There is so much, but I like to just keep things at a kind of basic, easy to understand level for now, and I will add like a part 2 or a part 3 to each video that you see to help explain it in stages, because it is rather complicated. So if you'd like to help out, come along and join us at the Discord. I'm really trying to build a kind of community around this to help get some of this cleared up, because the more that I present here, it means more and more publications require thorough examination, and hopefully some people are able to take on board what they learn here and go about this and bring that work back, and we can compile it all together. So that being said, I hope to see you there. I hope you enjoyed the video.